Do you ever wonder if you're doing your marketing right? Worse, does that hesitation or doubt slow you down or stop you from marketing altogether? So there are two parts to this. First, do you wonder if you're marketing right? In your head, this sounds like, am I doing the right thing? Is this even the right way to do this? Have I got this right? Are they even going to like this? And then worse than that doubt and that questioning, does it stop you from marketing? So you work on it and work on it and work on it, or you avoid it. You never put it out there in front of your audience in order to market your business. We're talking about this today because this can be a unique struggle for introverts. And here's why. You value authenticity. So you want to make sure you're bringing your unique voice in, that you're saying things in the way you would normally say them. And you don't want to sound like a robot. You don't want to sound like AI. You don't want to sound like everyone else. But you wonder if in leaning into your authenticity, is that where the problem is? Is that where things are going to go wrong? Is that going to throw the whole thing off? You also prefer deeper and engaged relationships over superficial conversations. But will that fly in the messaging that you're creating? How do you even do that? Will it even work? Or are you just going to get crickets? If the type of marketing that you're doing doesn't align with how you prefer to communicate and who you are, it might be more difficult to get a sense of whether or not you're even on target. So you like deep and thoughtful content, but you're putting together a quick and light social media post. That could be uncomfortable and feel inauthentic. Dredging up this question, am I even doing this right? And the thing is, this question, am I doing this right, can have two different meanings. Am I doing the right thing is more of like a strategy and tactics question. Am I doing this right is more of an execution or messaging or voice question. Either version of the question can stop us from moving forward. So I want to walk through both versions of this question today. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing these things right? And I want to talk about this today because my concern is that this doubt, this hesitation is holding you back. And I want to help you stop that from happening. Let's figure it out so you can keep moving forward. We're about to dig in, but first, tell me in the comments which one of these is the one you hear in your head. Or do you hear like a totally different version of this question that I haven't thought of? Okay, here we go. First, what if when you say to yourself, am I doing this right? You mean, am I doing this correctly? So you worry about whether or not you're executing on something right, or you worry about your messaging, or you worry about your voice, or you worry about the picture that you grabbed, or something like that. This is where you're worried about external approval. What will others think? Will they respond to this? Will I get any likes? What if they don't agree? What if they don't like it? What if they don't like me? We also wonder if we're following the rules correctly. Am I doing something wrong here where I'm going to break something or somebody's going to disapprove of my content? Is this how everyone else does it? I haven't seen anyone else do it this way, so is that okay? For example, I have a client who occasionally runs giveaways on Instagram. She ran her last one as a static post and we were looking at the results and we were asking what could she do different next time. And so I asked her, are you interested in running this as a reel? And she asked me, can I do that? So my first move was to open up Instagram guidelines and be like, can she? Is there any rule against it? I didn't find any rules against it, so I was like, why not? And the thing is that's really the only question that matters. You don't want to break a rule in the platform you're in because you don't want to get kicked off, right? Because you want to be there and grow your audience and do all the things that you're trying to do. So as long as there aren't any rules on the platform you're working with that are against the thing you're trying to do, there's no reason not to do it in the way that you are. Just because you haven't seen somebody else do it in that way doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. In fact, that's a great reason to try it. Keep in mind, the world of social media is huge. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean somebody hasn't done it. So it's always worth trying. Sometimes when we're worried about doing something right, we're getting stuck in perfection, which is a form of procrastination. This can show up when we're designing an image or when we're figuring out the best way to say something in a caption or in an email. Maybe you're procrastinating through this idea of wanting to get it right because you're avoiding putting yourself out there, because you feel vulnerable and you don't want to be judged. You're worried about what other people think. And if it feels out of sync with who you are and how you prefer to communicate, that can be emotionally draining to even think about, let alone put it out there. And so we don't. This becomes a way of hiding. We get stuck in this doubt. We sit in this place waiting for the confidence to move forward. This happens to me occasionally with subject lines for YouTube or for email marketing, as though there's one perfect line that will just work and that I'll know it when I see it. Now, admittedly, this does happen sometimes. Last summer, when I published my video about how I was done playing small, I knew out of the gate what the title was going to be. But that is rare, even if we've been doing it for years. And we cannot wait to have that happen in order to take a move. More often, I have to catch myself and be like, okay, you've been beating on this for a long time. You need to stop. Pick one and move forward because it's holding you back. We won't know if it's right until we put it out there because we're not the audience that's meant to decide that. We need to put our best content out there based on what we know in the moment and let our audience tell us whether or not it works. And that's the information that's going to help us do better next time. So if you ever get stuck like that, where you realize it's holding you back, I want you to remember one thing. You won't know if you've done it right until you put it out there because you're not the right person to decide that. Your ideal client, the people you're trying to reach, are the ones who are going to tell you that. And they can't tell you that unless you put it out there. So it's a bit of a conundrum. You want to know if you're doing it right, so you're afraid to put it out there, but you're not going to know if you do it right until you put it out there. You want to feel confident before you put it out there, but it's putting it out there and seeing the response that's going to inform you about how on target you are, help you get better on target as you go forward, and slowly build your confidence. Slowly, because you have to do it over and over and over in order to learn what works with your audience, and that's what's going to build your confidence. If this is where you get stuck, there are two things that you can do about it. First, remember all of the things you've done to get where you are today. Remember all those times when you were scared or uncomfortable about the thing you were about to do, and how you figured them out and got more comfortable and got to where you are today. Think about your journey and all your highs and successes that you achieved along the way, the different ways that you've built your confidence in order to do the things that you love and have become good at over the years. So you can't draw on the confidence of the thing you're working on that you're not sure if it's right because you haven't put it out there yet, and you're not going to have the information, the data, to feel confident about it until after you put it out there. What you can draw on is the confidence of who you are and who you've become, your strength, your capability, your talent, your skills, your resilience, and your story. Lean on the confidence of where you've been, what you've done, and who you've become. And then the second thing you can do is trust that everything that you've become and all that you've done is what will help you continue to go forward and find more success. Trust that you're doing your best. And that's what you're putting out there, is your best. Trust that when you reach the right people, that they will be kind, that they will be happy to see your message, and that it will resonate with them. Trust in your resilience and trust in yourself. So we've been talking about, if you say to yourself, am I doing this right? What you mean is, are you executing this right? Is your messaging right? Is your voice right? Have you done this right? But what if, when you say to yourself, am I doing this right? You mean, am I doing the right thing? As in, have I chosen the right strategy? Is this the right tactic? Is this the right tool? Am I in the right place? I think this holds us back because we don't want to waste our time. We worry that we're putting all this energy and effort and time into something, and we won't get any result because we've got it set up wrong to begin with. We worry about setting ourselves up for failure instead of setting ourselves up for success. I think this can be especially prevalent if you tried some things before, you haven't felt that it worked, and you just don't want that again. We worry that we'll finally execute on this marketing plan that we've been working on, only to find ourselves right back in the same spot we started. So we worry about spinning in circles instead of moving ahead. And I've experienced this myself, where I've done all these things and it hasn't worked. That's absolutely part of my journey as well. And that's one of the things I want you to think about, is this is part of the journey, because here's the thing. You cannot end up in the same spot. If you put all this effort and energy into a marketing strategy, putting your messaging together, putting things out there, you are not in the same spot because you have learned something along the way of creating that. And you've generated data that tells you whether or not it worked. It's really just about translating that data so you understand what worked and what didn't. So if you've put the effort into your strategy and figuring out your marketing and you're ready to put it out there, but this doubt about whether or not it's even the right strategy is holding you back, I just want to remind you that you're not going to know if it works until you do put it out there. And that both success and failure are informative. Whether it works or not, both of those are pieces of information that will help you continue to move forward. But you're not going to know until you put it out there. Keep in mind, no one gets it right the first time. It's that first time that tells you whether or not you're even on the right path. You're not going to know if you're on the right path until you put it out there. And again, you can't tell if it's right or not. Your audience is who's going to tell. Are they showing up? Are they responding? And they can't tell you that until they see it. So whenever you put your marketing out there, you are practicing. You're walking through and getting a feel for it and getting better at it every single time. You're putting yourself in a position to get feedback from your audience to help you, to inform you, are you on the right path or not? And you're finding your way to what works. I do want to remind you that when you put all this effort into your marketing, you will not end up back in the same spot you are now. You can't, because in the process of putting your marketing together, you're learning, and that is moving you forward. And I say this from 15 years of trying to figure out how to run my business and having different variations of my business and trying this and trying that and learning so much along the way so that it's easier for me now to understand what will work with my audience and what this messaging will look like. Do I ever feel 100% confident that the message I'm putting out there will work? Absolutely not. But I feel closer to an understanding of what will probably work because of the work I've done over the years. In the process of putting your marketing out there, maybe you debunked your fears about what it would be like to put it out there at all. Maybe you find out what does work and you get some responses. And no response is a response. And if it doesn't work, at least now you know, so that you can check that off and use that information to create your next message. Honestly, I sometimes find it easier to learn from what doesn't work, because then I'm like, okay, I guess I won't do that again. What should I do instead? And now you've got a bigger range. It's not about repeating what worked somehow, but instead being like, okay, that didn't work. What's next? When you do something the first time, take detailed notes about what you did and how it worked. If you're not sure how to tell if something worked, make it your best guess. There are 2 ways to track data. One is the analytics. Follows, subscribes, unsubscribes, comments, likes. That's one way of tracking. And then you've got quantitative data. How did somebody respond to your content? So when I send out an email, I'm going to track what's the open rate and what's the click rate. But I'm also going to track how people responded. When somebody replies and says, thank you, this was so helpful, that is informative in a completely different way than my open rate and my click rate. And it's those 2 pieces of data that tell me whether or not it's working. So don't just trust, oh, it doesn't feel like it went well. We need to remember that feelings are not facts. Feelings are based on your anxiety or your concerns or your beliefs about what is and isn't going to work and your confidence. So let's support or undermine how you feel it didn't work by looking at the quantitative data, the numbers going on in the background. How many people liked my post? How many people saved my post? How many people replied to my post with a comment? And any kind of qualitative data, like what they said in a comment or how they replied to me. Use those 2 pieces of information to validate or invalidate how you're feeling about it. When you know what data to track and how to interpret that data, it can help you feel better about the content that you're putting out. It can help you feel better about the strategy you've put together. And it can also inform you about whether or not you need to change that strategy. So kind of going back to the beginning of this, if you're concerned about whether or not the strategy is right, use the strategy and look at the data to decide whether or not that strategy is right. And then make changes after you've tried it. Because it's only after you've walked through the strategy that you're really going to know whether or not it's right. So here's the thing. Whether when you're asking, am I doing this right? You mean, am I saying this right? Am I executing this right? Am I using the right voice? Do I feel authentic? Am I showing up authentically? Or you might mean, is this even the right strategy? Am I using the right tactics? Regardless of which way you're using this question, my intention here has been to walk you through the ways you might be thinking about this question to help you unwind it a little bit so that you can take action and keep moving forward. As an introvert, your success is going to come from leaning into your authenticity and adopting marketing strategies that fit who you are. So if you're asking these questions because something doesn't fit right, I still recommend that you try it and see if you can execute on it. You might surprise yourself. But if you find that you're like, after having done it 2 or 3 times, you're like, okay, this isn't working. I don't know or care if I'm doing it right. It's not going to work for me. That's okay too. Because if you can't show up authentically in your marketing, you're not going to sustain it. You're not going to keep going. And that's going to hold you back. And that's a whole other problem, right? I'm hoping that this conversation has helped you think a little bit more analytically about that question, am I doing this right? Or even maybe you're asking, is this the right thing for me? It occurs to me that that might be another interpretation. Let me know in the comments. I want to know, how are you interpreting this question when you hear it in your head? Am I doing this right? What does that mean to you? I'd love to know what your interpretation of that question is and what's stopping you. And let me know if something we've talked about today has helped. Around here, we talk about marketing as an introverted business owner, and my goal is to help you keep moving forward, to market your business in a way that is in alignment with who you are so that you feel authentic and so that you can keep showing up for your business. If this worked for you, I invite you to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.